Hey, good morning, Drive Time. Welcome back. Once again, I'm Dave Drum, and I am again joined by Jim Ramos. Jim was with us last week. If you didn't see his video last week about protecting integrity, and all of what Jim's going to talk about last week and through this week and beyond, is based on his new book, Strong Men, Dangerous Times, 5 Essentials Every Man Must Possess to Change His World. This is an opportunity to really evaluate your life as we go through these things. If you did not see last week, definitely go back. You don't have to have seen it to make sense of this week, but I would definitely recommend it. We're going down a pathway here with Jim, and it is fantastic. So Jim, welcome back. Thank you for being here. And man, I've been looking forward to getting back into this with you.
I'm excited to be here, man. And just a couple points to review. First of all, that book is now an Amazon #1 bestseller, so we're really excited about that. We have it available 99 cents for an ebook for only the next 2 months for guys who want to pick up a ebook version, and for our active military and our first responders. If you send me a number of books you need, I'll send those for free to our active responders and first responders and active military. Just our way of saying thank you for your service. We love what you're doing for our country, and we love our country, and so want to do that. But last week we spent several minutes talking about the first of 5 essentials of manhood, which these are the 5 things that a man does to make him a man. These are the 5 things that, you know, when you say, give me your man card, if you're missing one of these 5 things, give it back, baby. And so the first one we talked about extensively last week is the trailhead of manhood. So that's protecting integrity. And you can go back and listen to that episode. The second aspect is what we call the climb. That is fighting apathy. Now, I believe that fighting apathy is the greatest battle a man will fight in his life. It's greater than pornography. It's greater than selfishness. It's greater than anything else he will ever fight. He has to overcome that apathetic spirit in him that caused Adam to sit passively by while Eve took the fruit. And in Genesis chapter 3, it says, and she gave some to her husband who was with her. And you've got to think, what was he doing? Was he staring at Eve going, where's her belly button? I mean, what was he like? Wow, naked girl. What was he doing that caused him to go flat? You know, Patrick Morley in his book, he wrote with Brett Clemmer and another guy, I can't remember the other guy's name, Delk, Clemmer and Morley. He said Adam went flat. In the moment where he should have stood up, he went flat. And so, and men have been doing that ever since. You know, 40% of babies today are born out of wedlock. 50% of couples today get divorced, and of those 50%, another 50% won't see their dad for an entire year. So apathy is a massive, massive problem with men. People say, well, Jim, the word apathy is not found in the Bible. That is true. The word apathy did not exist until the 1500s, but callousness did. And callousness has existed from Adam all the way until today. And when I think of callousness, now here's what I think. I want to give these guys a spelling lesson, Dave. So C-A-L-L-U-S is this right here. It's this callus. I can take it and I can take a knife and I can cut it off. I'll never feel a thing. It's a physical representation of my inability to resist friction. So when I'm climbing up a mountain, I have gravity. I have a 55-year-old man, I have weight, I have all of these factors pushing me down the mountain, right? And I have to fight those to climb the mountain. So anytime I want to climb the mountain, I have to fight those things that are pushing against me. And when I fight those things, I can climb. But when I fail to fight those things, when I fail to fight resistance or friction, it can create a hardening, a callus. Now, on my feet or on my hands, that callus can protect me. But over the heart, we have another word that we need to spell, and it's C-A-L-L-O-U-S. So C-A-L-L-O-U-S, callous, that is a figurative hardening of the heart. You know, we see this throughout the Bible. I think the Bible 24 times mentions hardening of the heart. You know, and that's what we're talking about, this figurative hardening of the heart is called callousness, C-A-L-L-O-U-S. The physical hardening of a hand or a foot is C-A-L-L-U-S. And so when men fail to fight all of the things pushing them down the mountain, we have a tendency or a propensity to become apathetic or callous. The definition of apathy is the loss of feeling. And so what we're talking about here, Dave, is that God has asked men to feel deeply and passionate for certain things. And when men refuse to care for the things he's called them to care for, their church, their wife, pursuing him as their God, their children, his physical health, his community. When a man doesn't care about the things that he's called to care about, that man is apathetic and he's no longer an asset to this world. He's a liability.
You know, it's interesting. You're talking about that apathy didn't exist in the Bible, that the word's not in there. But as you were just explaining what that meant, you know, in today's terms, I would just call it, you know, the culture of meh. And, you know, meh didn't exist in the Bible either. But in the Bible, God's very clear, you know, he condemns an entire people because they're neither hot nor cold. They're lukewarm. And he wishes they were either hot or cold, one or the other, because lukewarm makes him want to spit them out of his mouth. So I don't know that there's anything more definitively horrible than God saying he wants to spit me out. That doesn't sound awesome.
Yeah, it's so funny, Dave, because there's a book that Robert Lewis collaborated with Gallup or George Barna. They put together a book, and it's called The 5 Essentials to Engage Today's Men. And in this study of Christian men and non-Christian men, or the general population, they found that Christian men under 35 believe the same as non-Christian men regarding sex before marriage and living together. They just don't even care. And I'm like, how do you read your Bible and not care about this stuff? It's because they are apathetic men. They do not care. They have allowed the culture to drive them instead of fighting against the culture and climbing that mountain. And that's created soft and apathetic men. And author Stu Everett said, this is the era of the soft male. And he's right. We are the softest generation in the history of the world.
Wow, it's hard to hear. And, you know, I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about another guy who was serving at our church and how he was just an absolute rock star in what he was doing, kind of in the realm of hospitality and greeting people and leading a team. And I said, you know what? I said, not to take anything away from him, but part of the reason he looks like a rock star is he doesn't have any competition. There was nothing but women serving around him. And that's not a negative towards the women. And I'm thankful that there were women to fill in an area where men should have been much more present. So it's just like you're saying, you know, a soft generation of men, or, you know, again, the culture of meh. And it's horrible. And to kind of tie it back to last week, protecting integrity as something that we are called to do because of our faith, how is this not affecting our integrity? And if integrity is the baseline beginning of this journey, you know, I feel like not only are you failing at fighting apathy, you're also not protecting your integrity at the same time.
Yeah, it's an integrity breach on a whole nother level. You said something earlier. You talked about the culture of meh, M-E-H, and I thought, you know, if you're one of those guys and you're meh on anything, you're missing one letter to be in men. That one little consonant is the difference between you being a meh and you being men. And the guys have to identify that. Is there an area in my life where I just don't care? I mean, people ask me all the time, hey, well, why don't you reach out to men in churches? I'm like, well, because 80% of men sitting in churches are anonymous. So Men in the Arena is about calling men out of the anonymous bleachers and into the arena and into the fray and into the battle. And our churches are polluted. I use that word on purpose, with meh instead of men.
That's good. All right. So then you kind of started on it already. You said, what's that one area you're apathetic about? And last week we talked about that one area that if you were caught, it would affect your life greatly. So again, as always, we try to improve by 1% each week. We try to leave these videos with a tangible takeaway, something that we can actively pursue and try to change in our lives. So if you would go down that road a little bit about that area, how do we identify it? How do we know? Are we being too passive, or we also don't want to go off the rails and start beating people over the head with our faith and our beliefs when it's really ourselves we should be looking at. So where do we go from there?
Yeah, I'm going to make this really easy today. I want these guys, most of the guys listening are married, right? So I'm going to say, go to your wife and say, what's the one area, if you could have me do one thing on a habitual, consistent basis, what is that one thing? Another way to put it is, what's the one thing your wife nags at you the most about? And if you're not married, I'd say, ask your mother. And then again, ask, identify, and do something about it. Because the problem with an apathetic man is a lot of these guys are smart. They know a lot of information. We have more information coming into us than we've ever had in the history of the world, yet we're softer and weaker and more anonymous than we've ever been. So it's not knowledge. The Bible says knowledge, I think it's 1 Corinthians 8:1, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. So take your knowledge and use it to love and serve.
That's good. That's good. So, and I would expand on, whether you ask your wife, you ask your mother, the way I heard it phrased once was your moral compass. Everybody's got that one person in their life, grandmother, aunt, cousin, someone who, if they got caught doing something, that's the person they absolutely don't want them to, maybe it's a kid. But somewhere in there, you have that moral compass. And if you can't find one, there's a book that we would highly recommend that is the ultimate compass.
Absolutely.
But again, Jim, thank you for being here. Thank you for spending time with us again. And gentlemen, Jim's book, again, you can find it on Amazon. We'll put the link up in the description, and we'll also link back to last week's video if you didn't get a chance to watch it yet. But start to pursue this. Start to fight the apathy in your life. We all have a tendency, I think, gravity and just the nature of a broken man is to slow down and shift into neutral when we should really be, either downshifting for the uphill battle or even maybe shifting into a higher gear if it's something that we're really passionate about.
Hey, sure. Appreciate being on your show, man. See you next week.
Gentlemen, have a great week. Find somebody, ask them, identify that item, and then change it. We'll see you next week here on Drive Time.